Kane is the muscle for the group, but he's certainly not the brains for them, and that's a requirement for the role he wants so badly. Kane suggests that the Tajadas wipe out a competing drug family, one that they've known since they were kids. Though it would be effective for their immediate goals, it would bring too much heat towards them and essentially start a war in the city, something they don't have the resources for. Thankfully, Drew, who has been Lorenzo's right-hand man for some time, suggests a better plan that involves taking out the main drug supplier in the city, so that way the Tajadas can step in to assume the role and quickly move Noma and Mecha's leftover supply. As long as Kane has Zeke's murder to hold over Lorenzo, we can assume that he will remain in charge, and there's no telling what reckless decisions he'll make in the future. Thankfully, Drew was there to save things from heading toward the worse. Kane is currently incredibly aware of himself. Kane finally succeeded after a protracted campaign of respectful and disrespectful attempts to advance himself into the top position and take over the family company. Kane quickly blackmailed Lorenzo into giving him the throne after discovering that Lorenzo was responsible for Zeke's death. Even though Monet is still grieving and looking for the murderer, it was a very low way to handle the situation. However, in Kane's defense, Lorenzo challenged him to track down Zeke's killer, and Kane succeeded in doing so. For a very long time, Lorenzo refused to give Kane the prized position of right-hand man because he believed that Kane wasn't ready for it. And in this episode, more than most others, we see just how unprepared Kane really is for the position. While the NYPD and the federal government are putting pressure on Monet and the Tajadas as a whole, Monet has received a hint that they're up to something despite not knowing the exact nature of their probe. This is due to Detective Kevin Whitman's suspicion that Monet is to blame for Carrie Milgram's death, who was the late professor's erstwhile lover. He goes to any lengths to look into the crime, Monet, and the Tajadas as a whole. He consequently becomes engaged in the RICO case that Jenny Sullivan and Blanca Rodriguez are trying to establish against Tarek, Davis McLean, and the Tajadas. The only thing Monet needs to do is keep quiet, avoid getting into trouble, and refrain from telling the NYPD or the government about the small and limited amount of evidence that is currently accessible. Unfortunately, she can't help but respond to Detective Whitman's insults, even when they reach levels that would be regarded as harassment, out of pride and tenacity. Nevertheless, as she struggles to defend herself, Monet spills some information that makes Detective Whitman grin because it could be used as evidence against her in the case he is attempting to put together. When Whitman comes around, Davis McLean begged Monet to just keep silent, even joking that her words will land them in hot water. He turned out to be correct, so perhaps Monet will pay attention to his advice in the future before things get worse for her and her family. For more videos, don't neglect to subscribe to our channel.